one of the worst movies about game development is, I think, called Indie Game the Movie.
Yeah.
Because all of them ended up, like being this huge million seller success. It's ridiculous. That is not your average game developer.
Yeah.
And I remember, when we started with the game development magazine in the Netherlands, we had this duo called Flambeer, and this indie duo, and they were crazy successful. But those were two, like once in a generation talents, and they got together and they made each other better, and then they were they were winning Apple Design Awards and stuff like that. And then a lot of other young indie developers thought that was the way to go. So they skipped school and stuff like that. And in the end, it took a while for a lot of people to discover, well, that duo is the exception. The rule is eating ramen noodles for 3 years.
Having some holes in your underpants and continue for a few years.
Yeah, and end up with something that nobody buys.
Yeah, I think that nowadays, like social media in general, and with the new generation, if you really look at people see kind of the result of somebody, and people see the success of something. It's the last part in the process compared to somebody's beginnings. Yeah. And if you see a TikTok, for example, you see probably for a lot of young people, they see, just with a few dance moves, I can make millions. Why would I do a 40-hour work week? Yeah. So there's this whole disconnection between what is reality and what is the exception. But the exception is, of course, sold, because for programs like TikTok or Instagram, they want creators. So they want creators to believe in the success story, because that makes people create. And the more people create, the bigger the companies will become. So, of course, they want the narrative to run like, oh, you have the chance to be successful. Then again, this is the exception. And the exception is used to sell you to make more content.
I think that's a very interesting perspective. Especially for young people, this is going to be an issue, because they really only see successful people, because they're watching TikTok and YouTube all day, and
probably the big channels and
the
ones that are popping up and being recommended. And some are smaller, which is great in the algorithm, but most of them are already over millions of subscribers.
But also, if you look at the game development community, you've got this great channel. They make documentaries. No clip, yes. But every no clip documentary is on a successful game.
Yeah.
And I would love them to make a documentary on failed projects, because they may even be more interesting as well. But there's so much you learn from failure, probably much more than looking at they succeeded in it, but that was I don't know what parts of that I can learn, but these mistakes I now am aware of, and I may be able to avoid.
The hoax of the success story. It's it is the truth in that case, and it's always, if you use it as an example, like, hey, this is how they did it. Not saying that you can't, but it can be a trap. Yeah. And no, I agree. I think sometimes the story of failure, like I tried 10 times and it didn't work out. It's not so inspiring, maybe, but it is very truthful. It's what's to the bigger part of people starting companies, trying to be musicians, maybe game makers, even painters have. Like, it's the bigger part that don't reach that moment of success.
Yeah, I remember when we did Control Conference, so this game development conference in the Netherlands, we had a guy who thought he was going to be very successful. He had his group from a university, and they made this game, and they won Best Student Game, and then they found a publisher, and then they were featured everywhere, and then the game launched, and it crashed way harder than on Explorer 2. And he ended up with a personal debt of, like 50,000 euros or something. And he was very young when that happened, something like 25 years old. But he did a talk on that. He did, I think it was titled, My Game is at 33 on Metacritic. And the room was packed. And we made a recording of it, and that video has been viewed tens, if not 100,000 times. It was somehow so inspiring to listen to someone being very honest about what went wrong and maybe why. And I've always felt there is a certain hunger among game developers for those stories about failed projects. And yes, like I tried 10 times and it never worked, isn't very inspirational. But somehow some of these stories can be inspirational, can be, but now we know how not to do it. So let's do it this way. Let's try it that way.
Yeah. It's also easier that if you have these rougher points and then you push on and it becomes successful, then it's easy to talk about the moments that it wasn't, because now you're already at that different position. You're already on top again of that mountain.
Yeah.
So then to talk about the moments that it went down is easier. But the moments that it's down and you're like, okay, these things are looking quite dark. I think that is very difficult for people to even engage in a conference and say, I have no clue how to be here.
Yeah.
So I think that's a logical way why not everybody will be there. It's like, yeah, but I didn't do it. I'm probably gonna exit the industry.
Yeah.
So why would I share my story?
Fair enough. But
I still
again,
think it's very useful for
Yeah.
people to know those stories.
Yeah.
At least to bring it in perspective in the reality of things.
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey there, I appreciate you watching the video. If you like this one, check out this video or that video. And if you want to support the channel, make sure to click on top of my head on the logo and subscribe to the channel.